Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a pumpkin, and there's a lot of different ways that you can make pumpkins. I really like this soft chenille yarn, but you can also make it with just cotton. This is just regular 100% cotton. And the great thing about pumpkins is if you look at a pumpkin patch, you can see they're all different shapes and sizes, and they're not perfect. So making a pumpkin, if you don't do it where it's perfect, then that's better. I think, just because pumpkins aren't perfect. But I tried for a couple months to find a pumpkin pattern that I really liked, because I wanted to make some pumpkins for my grandkids, but I didn't like any of the patterns I found. So one of the biggest things I didn't like about the patterns was all of the ones I found to make these indentions. They just have you take the string and pull the string on the side until it comes apart, but this is not going to be very safe for kids because my grandkids are very little. So I wanted something that kids could not pull on. So I came up with this idea, and I think it works pretty good. And the first one that I made, so when I made this one, I took my bowl cozy pattern, and I just took the bowl cozy and kind of went with that concept where you increase and go straight up, and then instead of stopping like you do for a bowl cozy, I just did the bottom part of increases into the opposite, where you do decreases instead of increases. So that's how this is going to be. So if you've already made my bowl cozy pattern, this will be super easy because it'll be very similar to that. Also, the stem, it's a couple different ways that you can do that as well. So if you're going to use 100% cotton, then you need to use 2 strands at one time, like my bowl cozy pattern is. But if you use the chenille yarn, then you only need to use 1. You can use 2, obviously, if you want to use 2, make it bulkier. But I think that if you just use 1, it'll give you more flexibility to pull and form your pumpkin. So I'm going to use this mustard color because the store ran out of orange chenille yarn after I made this one. I've went to several stores and I cannot find orange chenille yarn anywhere right now. So to start, we're going to make a magic circle and chain 1. Sometimes this chenille yarn can break if you pull on it too tightly, so just be careful when you're pulling on your magic circle. We're going to do 9 half double crochets inside the magic circle. Then you will take your magic circle tail and carefully pull to close your magic circle. So one of the things that's different about this pumpkin from the bowl cozy is we are not going to join rounds with a slip stitch, and we're not going to do any closing rounds and starting with a new one. Instead, we will just continue on, and I will be using a stitch marker. The most important thing about using a stitch marker for this is because the chenille yarn is a little bit hard to see, and sometimes because it's so fuzzy, your stitches can run together. So I should have put in a stitch there, but since I started, make sure we're at 9. So you're not going to join your round, but I am going to crochet my tail in. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets in each of the 9 stitches. So it's very important to use a stitch marker with this particular yarn. If you're using the cotton, you may not need it, but I still use it just so that I don't lose track of where I am, since you're not going to be starting new rows. Okay, I have a total of 18 stitches where I did increase stitches in all 9. So now I will not join rounds. I will just take my stitch marker out and I will do a half double crochet. All of our stitches are going to be half double crochets. So put 1 in there and then put my stitch marker in. And this one is going to be for all the way around. You do a half double crochet and then an increased stitch, so which is 2 half double crochets. So you repeat that all the way around to the end. Okay, I finished that row, number 3. So next, remove your stitch marker, do a half double crochet, put your stitch marker back in, do another half double crochet in the next stitch, and then do an increased stitch. And repeat that all the way around. Okay, so this is where the pattern can really be customized. So for the next rows, what you do is you start making your increases, where we are going to do 5 stitches with a half double crochet and then an increase stitch and then 5 and increase, and repeat that. Your next row you do 6 and then an increase, repeat that, and then 7 and then 8 and then 9. So this size pumpkin has 9 of those. I mean, it has rows up to 9 in between the increases. This one has, it's kind of hard to see that color. This one I only did up to the 7 between the increased stitches. And so those are the rows that you can add or delete as many as you want to make the size of your pumpkin. So I'm going to put on the screen here just an example of how it goes. So up to this point you will do all of them the same. If you want your pumpkin to come out wider, you can see how much wider this one comes out, you add more of those rows. So this first row I'm going to do where I do 5 between each increase, you keep adding those. So you can go 7, you can go 9. I have another one that I'm doing 11, just as many as you want. Just each row you add another number. So instead of doing 5 between the increases, you do 6, 7, 8. And then, or you can do less, like this one is 7. You could just do 5 and it'd be a really tiny pumpkin. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna go ahead and complete 5, 6, and 7 and make one this size just so that I can get on to the next part to show you. This is the end of the increase rows. I went up to doing 7 between each increase. And now I will not do increase stitches. So for this next part, we're going to do half double crochet, 1 in every single stitch going around. So the fact that you can customize this is the size that I'm going to be making right now. The more rows you add, the taller your pumpkin will be. So it may look like as you go taller, then it may look more narrow, but there's a lot of pumpkins that look like that. So I just like this look. So just keep going around and around, put your stitch marker in each time you start a new row so that you can keep track of how many rows you're doing. So just make your stitch, put your stitch marker in, go all the way around. I'm going to do 3 rows of no increases. That is the end of the no increase rows. So now this is how I want it to be tall. Tall wise. So now we're going to start decreasing. So if you watch the bowl cozy video, this is basically how you do a bowl cozy. So from here we are going to start decreasing. So everything that I did in the increase rows, I will do in the decrease rows. So down here where I did the rows that were 5 half double crochets with in between each increase, and then I went to 6 and then 7. So here I will now start this next row. You're going to go, since I went all the way to 7 and then increased, I will do 7 stitches with half double crochet, 1 in each stitch, and then I will do a decrease stitch, and then I will repeat that. 7 decrease, 7 decrease. The next row you go to 6, next row you go to 5, and then I will do the 2 and a decrease, repeat, 1 decrease, repeat, just like you did in the very beginning. And then so here I will do 1 half double crochet, put my stitch marker in, we'll do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now we do a decrease stitch. And in case you don't know what a decrease stitch is, for half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, then you go to the next one, insert, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. That way you're pulling the 2 stitches together to have 1 loop on the top. Now repeat that around with 7 and a decrease, and then the next row you will do 6 decrease, repeat that. Next row will be 5 decrease, then repeat that. This is the end of the row where I did 5 stitches and then a decrease. And now I will do 2 stitches and an increase. I will do 2 stitches and a decrease. Repeat that all the way around. That is the end of the 2 stitches, decrease, repeat. So now we will do 1 stitch and then a decrease. And repeat that all the way around. Okay, that is the end of the 1 stitch, decrease, repeat. So we have 1 more row to go. However, at this point you need to fill your pumpkin. If you are making this size pumpkin, then one of these 3.5 ounce 80 yard skeins will be enough. But if you're going to make a bigger one where you do more increase rows, then you will need to have 2 or more depending on how big you make it. But you can make this size with 2. So just fill your pumpkin. You don't need to fill it to where it's really tight, but you do want to fill it enough to where you don't have any sagging pieces. Going to put that there so I know when I get to the end. Make sure you're pulling each time you finish a stitch. For this last row, pull a little bit so that it starts to pull and gather together. Okay. Still have quite a bit left over. This is probably enough to do 1 or 2 more of the no increase rows if you want to make it taller. But just remember, if you're trying to figure out if you have enough yarn, whatever row you do down here with increases, you need to also do with a decrease. So just remember that when you're counting how many more rows you have to do. So at this point, we're going to leave a long tail. So we need enough of a tail to do a little stitch, like a gathering stitch around the top, and enough to go around this way to have 6 lines. So like that and like that. So just kind of hold it up like that a little bit and then give yourself a little bit more. And then I I am going to yarn over and pull through all of my yarn to lock it in. And then I'm going to get a crochet needle. So thread your crochet needle, and then we're going to do a loose stitch in between each of these stitches. Just weave it in and out between your stitches. Just give it a nice pull so that it closes. Then stick your crochet needle in the middle, come out to the other end in the middle. Whoops. And then pull on that so it gives it a little divot. And then make a knot so that the divot will stay. Hold that in place until you get your knot in. And then go back up through the top. And now we're going to start making our dents. So if you're not concerned with children playing with this, or if you don't mind the look of this loose thread, then you can just take it and go to one side, stick it in, pull, come to the other side, stick it in and pull. I'm not going to do that because I do want my grandchildren to be able to play with the pumpkins, and I like the look of it being buried inside so you can't see the string. So you just need to weave in and out of your stitches, and you really don't need to go in a certain place. If you want to make sure you're going in between each stitch, you can do that. I'm not going to be that detailed. I'm just going to go in between each one like I'm just doing a loose gather. And just go all the way around. Try to keep your line straight. The first one doesn't really matter because it's just going to be your starting point. But once you get that first line in, you will need to try to keep your line straight. Then you will pull to make your dent. You can make your dent as deep as you want. It just depends on how you want to do it. So once you do that, hold it in place. Make a knot so that it won't come loose. Okay, now that should be locked in good. And then go to the opposite side. So start here, work your way around till you come in here, and then pull, tie a knot, then go this side and do the same thing, and do that side until you have all of the dents you want. And you can add as many dents as you want to add. So the main part of the pumpkin is finished. Going to do a stem. So then I'm going to just attach the yarn on the just any stitch you want. Just pick a place to start with and cast on to your yarn. Leave your tail over here and then do a stitch. And I am going to tie a knot just so that it's secure. Okay. Make that a little bit shorter. I'm going to hide it on the inside. And then I'm just going to do single crochets all the way around till I get in a circle. And you can put it in any stitch you want. Okay. Now that I have a circle, I'm going to put a single crochet in those stitches in my circle. You just keep going around. The first row, you should put a stitch in every stitch, but then as you go up, you can start skipping stitches so that it gets more narrow. Just keep turning it around. Once you get that second row, you'll be able to see where it starts to stand up. There'll be a little hole there and you want to just keep crocheting around. I'm going to tuck that tail in. So I'm just going to keep crocheting around. And okay, at this point, I am going to put some stuffing inside of it, just so that it doesn't become floppy. And I've got about 3 rows for my height, and now I'm going to start skipping stitches. I don't want this one to be real tall. You can make it as tall as you want. I'm just skipping one every so often until it starts to narrow up. Put a little bit more stuffing top. Now I'm going to start really pulling it together. And then when you get to the top with the height you want, just slip stitch around. Then I'm going to cut. I'm going to leave a little bit of length because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. So I don't really want this to have a point. I'm going to push that down, and then I'm going to take the crochet needle and I'm going to stick it through the middle of the stem so that it pushes it down. I'm going to pull it out right here at the base. This way you can kind of pull on it and shape the top the way you want it to be. And then I want to just secure it around the edge a little bit. So I'm just going to do weaving it in and out just to secure the base of that. You don't have to do this, but since I'm giving some of these to the grandkids, I just want it to be as secure as it can be, because one of them is only 1 year old and the other one is 2. Okay, so then just gonna stick it all the way through, and then I'm gonna cut to hide it in there. And that is how that is done.